We should make avatars for ourselves then.
I didn't. That would be great. You know, like, you ever seen this avatar phenomenon where it's, you know?
Yeah. Here, listen, I got this on recording. I'm recording this. I might put it on the channel just to see. Who knows? We'll see how it goes. I know this is the first time we talked, and but what do you want to talk about?
What's our topic today?
Yeah.
Well, the topic of interest is we were on this Roundup glyphosate problem and what it does to gut bacteria, and then you got on this interesting topic of fecal transplant.
Yeah, fecal matter transplants. Okay, good. Now I remember what we were talking about. I've been digging deep into this, brother, and you were the one that tripped me off to this. When you came up here, I got to be, what, it was 10 years ago, whatever it was? And you had been having that problem with the Lyme disease and the antibiotics, and they told you were going to die. Remember you told me this?
Yes. I had such a dose of antibiotics. Well, it saved my life because I went into a meningitis state. But I took so much antibiotics, like an IV every day of 500 milligrams of something like rocephin or something. Well, it knocked the bug out, but it killed all the bug in the stomach. And next thing you know, it was just a total psoriasis eczema case beyond. And I started to look into, how they treated that. And it was all pharmacologically incorrect. Like they were hitting with antibiotics to kill the infection that came into being from the antibiotics removing the good gut bacteria. So I found the probiotic phenomenon, and that wasn't really very much out there. But there was a guy who has started a company, and he had like Crohn's disease, and it went all over the place figuring things out. And he came up with a line called a Garden of Life. And we took that probiotic that was a homeostatic soil organism.
Yeah. And I know, and you told me you were out jogging in a couple of weeks after taking it, right?
I'm lying.
Yeah, now, listen to this now. So just so everybody knows what I'm talking about, Roger came up here with another guy to do a documentary on my research, pretty much with the mud fossils. Well, it was totally with the mud fossils. But during the process of going through the video and making a movie and so forth, we just talked, and he told me how he was real sick and got better by taking this primal defense from Garden of Life. So I still, that's just my nature. I started looking into this, and sure enough, man, it's just nothing but probiotics. And then I realized that the only thing in you that does any chemistry that can work whatsoever is bacteria. And bacteria create enzymes. And the enzymes do this chemistry. Now listen to this. If you didn't have an enzyme to break up the chemistry, the chemistry would happen, but it would take sometimes millions of years to do the chemistry you need done in less than 1 second. And the enzyme does that chemistry in less than 1 second, what it would take millions of years to do if it was doing it by itself. And it will do it by itself. But these enzymes are created by only by bacteria. Now, I remember what we were talking before about nuclear radiation. I think maybe it was you I was talking to about, but here's the key. Here's how I can prove how important these enzymes are. First of all, they know this. If you look it up and say, how fast would you die if you didn't have any enzymes in you? They would say you have about 2 minutes to live. And that's because enzymes are continuously breaking down products in your body, and without them, you just fall over dead. It's so fast to turn over. It's staggering to the mind. So when these bacteria squirt out these enzymes, and they do chemistry millions of times faster, billions of times, then that chemistry would happen in your body. It's never going to happen. You're going to fall over dead. Now, here's how I can prove how important these things are. You know what acute acute radiation syndrome is? Well, I'll explain it to you just in case. Acute radiation syndrome comes in a spectrum. It's a pulse. All right, so you get a pulse of magnetic radiation, like nuclear radiation, and if you get a real heavy-duty one for a little bit of time, a minute or so, you're probably going to die. But you won't die right away. You start dying in an hour. You say, why wait an hour? Why don't you just die right there? What happens is that nuclear radiation it goes right through your body, and it's strong enough to kill bacteria. But it's not. It doesn't kill all your cells because they're much stronger than the bacteria. The bacteria are very, very tiny. They're tiny, tiny, tiny little things, and they get hit with this radiation, it kills them. So here's what happens: you're walking around in CERN, and all of a sudden something goes wrong, and they get pop, just a pop like that of high energy radiation, and you just happen to be standing there. Well, nothing happens. You just stand there and you say, well, I guess I'm okay. Well, in an hour, you start throwing up. And then you have diarrhea and nausea, vomiting and puking your guts out. And it's all gastrointestinal stuff. Because you killed all the bacteria that's in your body, you can't digest anything that's in your intestines anymore. And you get that acute radiation sickness. And think about it. Why would it cause anything in your digestive system if it wasn't for that? And that's the only thing it affects. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah, now, the other thing is that, I don't know if you know about the fluid-filled highway?
Yeah.
All right. The fluid-filled highway is another thing I discovered when probably in the same time frame as when you came here. And it is a layer between the flesh of your body, the material, substance of your body, and right between there and above where you got skin and stuff that's, it's there, but you can scrub it off and it's not a big deal. But once you get below that layer of this fluid-filled highway, you're into your vital flesh. And you don't want to be scrubbing that stuff up because of blood and nasty and pussy and all that stuff. So this layer, I discovered it. Nobody knew about it. And now it's the biggest organ in the human body. I'm not kidding you, man. You look it up, interstitium. It's just.
The what? This is the fascia or the.
Here's the deal. Fascia is the coating around all your organs, your lungs, your kidneys, your heart. It's a coating on every organ and every tissue type in your body. It surrounds it to protect it. It's a membrane. But they didn't know there was a layer on top of that membrane. It was like a thin layer of fluid. It's now called the fluid-filled highway. And what it does, they didn't realize it was there because by the time they did autopsies, there was no more fluid in there. So it was like they thought it was a flat sheet that coated the body. But it's not. It's a fluid-filled highway with all of the lymph fluids. Basically, it's lymph. That's in that, lymph, and that's the stuff that carries the enzymes, which are the ribosomes. They are the enzymes, the catalysts that do this millions of times a second chemistry, and they work with half-lives. This is stuff they don't even know in physics. And enzymes are the things that work with the half-lives of atoms. All right, you know what a half-life is. It's how fast something breaks down and breaks in half and breaks in half and breaks in half until eventually it becomes stable. That's a half-life. Stability is an exact number of particles, and isotopes are a bunch of extra particles or not enough particles. And they work with these half-lives, but you need enzymes to work there. And it gets a little complicated. Am I losing you?
No.
All right. The enzymes are like chemistry sets. And they are just elegant as hell. I mean, just absolutely amazing, the sophistication in this little enzyme. And you don't get them if you don't have the bacteria. If you kill your bacteria, you're not going to get them. Now, you're not going to kill...
Problem with your, is it gallbladder, or remove it? I think you're supposed to supplement with digestive enzymes.
Exactly, yeah.
But they don't do that in regular medicine, so people, the next set of problems start. I mean, they take these gallbladders out to let's just take that out and see if that's the problem.
Yeah, let's just take it out, throw it away, and see what happens.
They did somebody I know. I was like, do not listen to this guy. He's a fucking nut.
I know, yeah.
Took it out, and then I was like, well, now you need to go get some really high quality digestive enzymes. What are you talking about? I said, well, I think that's part of the mechanism that helps bring them into being in your body. Put them where they're supposed to be. And I don't know, you tell me.
Well, all I can tell you is the probiotics, the bacteria that's in your body is there, and there is at least 75,000 strains that they know of. Well, let me put it this way. There's 75,000 enzymes that they know of. Every enzyme has a target. One enzyme might target carbohydrates with an attachment to some kind of transition metal, but it's going to be a very, very sophisticated, very, very specific target that enzyme will target, because there's 75,000 of them. So you got fats, you got carbohydrates, you got sugars, you got, things in your body that need to be dealt with when you eat them. You don't eat a carrot and it turns into a mussel. It just doesn't happen. You eat the carrot, then the carrot gets eaten, literally eaten, by the bacteria. The bacteria poop the enzymes. Basically, that's what happens. The bacteria has a DNA program inside of itself that says, here's my job in life. I'm going to create this polypeptide chain. Now, every amino acid, there's 20 different amino acids, and each one of them can be a digit in that chain of sequence of polypeptides. That gives you programming that's just absolutely stunningly amazing. 20 characters in each one of these polypeptide chain balls. And when you squirt that out, it creates immunities, it creates all kinds of things. And they break down chemistry in your body, 75,000 different ones. Now, then you got proteins that are the same as enzymes, very, very sophisticated. Instead of breaking things, they build things. So they come from the same place, from bacteria. They come out in a little ribosome ball, just like the enzymes do. But when they open up and they get used, they create like a construction package. They pop out with a whole bunch of construction guys, and they take, okay, give me some of that, give me a couple of carbons. Oh, I need some silicon, bring the silicon over. Well, guess what? If the guy that's supposed to have broken down the silicon is dead, there's no silicon. The guy says, hey, I need a silicon, I need some silicon, I need to make some SiO2 over here. What's the matter with you guys? He said, oh, the guy who did this silicon, he died. He said, well, how did he die? He had a bunch of glyphosate. He said, you're kidding me. He said, no, he ate a bunch of oats or whatever, wheat. They just sprayed it on it and he ate it and he's dead. I said, well, what am I going to do? I don't have any silicon. He said, well, you don't have any silicon, you're not going to have any strength in that membrane wall. You're going to be invadable. He said, well, what am I going to do? You're going to get sick. So what we need is to know what the bacteria are in the body, and then we can supplement those bacteria to bring you up to the standard. The problem is most people don't have good bacteria in their body right now because of all of the disastrous stuff we do to our body, specifically the glyphosate, because that's a bactericide. That kills bacteria. We eat bacteria, and that bacteria is supposed to keep us healthy. And if you eat glyphosate, is a bactericide, and just like we were talking before, they spray it on right before you eat it to dry it out, to desiccant. And so you just take a couple of spoonfuls of it, and the next thing you know, you got bacteria in you that's not doing well, it's dying. Now, you're not going to get all of it and kill it all probably, so you're just going to have a weakened immune system. You're going to be in a position where you're going to be in a room with 10 other people, and they're all going to be healthy. Not a single one of them is going to get sick, and you're the one that's going to get sick because you don't have a tight junctions in your cell walls. Your cell walls are like a mat, like a big, big rubber mat, and they got a bunch of little tiny holes in them. But those holes are regulated, and they say you can come through here or you can't come through here, but this is the only place you can come in. And if that, and they're called ion channels. And then an ion just means something that has a charge. So they look for charges on different molecules, and they say you can come in or you can't come in, and you can leave or you can't leave. That's what a membrane does. But once it doesn't have the chemistry to do that job, it just doesn't do that job. But things can come in and aren't supposed to come in. Things can leave that aren't supposed to leave. You don't have the ability to break down the food. You don't have the ability to make good, healthy, strong proteins and muscles and tendons and all. You're nothing but a big.
What are we seeing as the biggest, manifestation of this type of toxicity or poisoning? I mean, so this autism thing is related to this gut bacteria phenomenon, correct?
Absolutely. Now, here's the key. Kennedy was talking about the MMR vaccine and it's this and that. Well, he's half right and half wrong. The MMR is a live virus. They use a live virus, so it's live, but it's weak. Well, guess what? The kid, when he's born, he has no immunities whatsoever, none, zero. And they have to get a little bit of immunity coming through the vaginal canal, through the feces and everything that they should be slurping through being born, and get some kind of immunities. Well, some kids don't have any immunities at all. They give them that MMR vaccine and they get sick. Yes, he's right. And they get autism. They get all kinds of problems because it appears to damage something in the myelin sheathing, which is the fibers, like their insulation of the nerve fibers. Something in that myelin sheathing. I don't have any resources to do any technical research on this, but that's in our observational stuff. You know about Marguerite, right? Or do you? Marguerite and her son? Okay, you don't know. Marguerite, her son had autism.
And the Irish, yes. Keep going.
Yeah. And he was nonverbal. He was 9.5 years old, and they were going to put him in a padded room for the rest of his life. They call it a locked ward because he was dangerous, and he was aggressive, and he was nonverbal. They just thought he was lost in Never Never Land. She started him on the same stuff you told me about. And I said, I said, what's his poop like? She says, the autism causes that poop to be a problem. I said, no, the poop causes the autism. So she listened to me because she was at her rope's end. She had nothing left to go to, and they were going to take her son and put him in a locked room. So he wouldn't take the pills. She couldn't get in and take the pills. So she ended up getting a powder. They make a powder for kids. And he wouldn't take the powder either easily. So what she ended up doing was putting it in ice cream. And she'd give him an ice cream every day with the powder in it. And then she went to Harvard too, and took, digestion type things, ribosomes and all of that sort of stuff at Harvard, online. And so she came up with a couple other little chemistry things that are right into the phosphate area, sulfur, aluminum, silicon, so forth. And now he's pooping correctly, and what she said was he's the top of his class in school. He's the top of his class. He's talking, everything's perfect. And this was 5.5 years ago, man. This is not something that just happened last week. Now, she started a charity group over there in Ireland, and she's got the government looking into it, and she's getting grants to get this done. Here's the problem. All it is bacteria. All it is bacteria. That's a living organism. You cannot patent a living organism. There is no big payday. That's why they don't research it. All they can do is create modified strains. That's what these vaccines are. They're modified enzymes and proteins. They're modified. That's why they can patent them. There's one coming out right now for Alzheimer's. $26,000 a year. And they know right now, they just came out last week or a couple of weeks ago, that they found the enzyme and the bacteria that does that same job. Instead of $26,000 a year, it's free. Once you start to clone these things and start to ferment them, you make all you want for nothing, but you can't patent them.
You can make any one you can come up in the refrigerator at home, or
Basically, yes. People are doing it. They're making their own homegrown yogurt, for fermenting their own lactobacillus. They're making their own stuff.
Kombucha now, that's what the kombucha is about.
Exactly. There you go. And but you got to get the right strain. You got to start with the right strain. Now, nobody knows what the right strains are. Nobody has done the investigation, and they made it so.
Your database idea.
Well, that's what we need, is the database, and the database is what. If we had this done right, you could take a picture of your poop, and it would have all the different colors, the frequencies of colors of the things that are in that poop. And in AI, it could sort through that and figure out how much of the yellow and the extra yellow and the almost yellow and the yellow and all the different colors, all the different frequencies, and figure out what's the consistency and what's the different types. Because every one of those colors is going to be a different bacteria. And there'll be, say, just
regular diagnostic stool analysis at this point, which, I did it back in those days, and that told of the problem. You could see whatever, some proliferation of some pathogenic one, like C. diff or something.
Exactly. You're going to look at that and take a picture of it. Now, all you got to do with your cell phone, take a picture of it and click send. It would go into the national database and say, here's what my picture looks like. AI would say, whoa, you got way too much yellow. You don't have any blue. You got too much of the pink. Whoa, you're a mess. And here's what you got to take. And within a minute or two, you'd have a diagnosis, and here's what you take to supplement yourself, and then you would become healthy. You look up any disease, any, not a single chronic illness is not helped by fecal matter transplant, which is the bacteria. Only you're giving somebody else's poop to you. Now,
how do you transplant?
Well, you could do it with an enema. First of all, you could do it just with an enema. Secondly, they have it now where you could desiccate it, just dry it all out, put it in a pill, and take the pill. And it goes into your intestines and starts to grow. The bacteria grows. It wants to grow and grow and grow. But you got to get it to the right place and have the right bacteria, which means if you get harvested from one guy who's healthy, you're probably going to get 90% of the good stuff. But if you harvest it from 10 people that are healthy and mix it all together, you're probably going to get 100% of the good stuff. All right, and then you would have a whole plethora of bacteria that you could just ferment. And sooner or later, you could isolate the ones that you want to cultivate because they're the ones that are really important, like the Lactobacillus acidophilus. Now they got the Lactobacillus reuteri, which targets melanomas, which is one of the deadliest forms of skin cancer, melanoma. It actually, they say, they don't want to say it helps, they say it colonizes the melanoma and it helps with the treatments. No, it goes and it eats the melanoma. Colonizes means it goes over there and eats it. And that's what it does, it removes the tumors. My wife had melanoma. And it was when it started, they said, this doesn't look good. She had the spots and all that stuff. And she took the treatments like they gave her, but the first one almost killed her. And so she took a different one. And that didn't have a whole lot of effect on her, but she's better now. But she took the Lactobacillus reuteri and some other gut bacteria stuff because she was having problems with her guts. It's if your lymph nodes don't have the bacteria in them that breaks down and eats up and chews up and gobbles up and breaks down all of the debris that's in your body because it's brought over to your lymph nodes. When it goes into your lymph nodes, it's nasty. It's got to get broken down into little bits and pieces. And then bacteria literally come over, grab it, well, lymph nodes, lymph fluids, but probably bacteria. Take it over and dump it into the bladder and pump it out and into feces and whatever, and get rid of it. Out it goes. Bacteria is like just unbelievably elegant for what you got there. A single cell, one cell, and they do all that. Without those, you're dead.
Surely not focused on enough in this American Western diet. So, these things were all thought out before, you were eating fermented foods and fermented dairy, if you did dairy, and, sauerkraut. And people just don't eat enough fermented stuff to get the stuff in.
They don't understand, number one, and number two, the incentive is profit. It's not health. That is not the incentive. The incentive is to create something that you can make a ton of money from. And that's what they're doing. Every one of these drugs is just over the top expensive. And if you can make it from a bacteria, which is the enzyme, every one of them, almost 100% of these drugs are enzymes. They're proteins. Proteins and enzymes, same thing. Almost 100%. But if they can go in and take this CRISPR technology, which cuts open the DNA, and they splice in something that it could be good, could be bad, but they splice in a little something that changes it just a smidge, and they say, okay, I own it, that's mine, and you have to have this, and the FDA says, yeah, you got to take that. You're done.
Then they have the market.
Then they got the market. They own it. $26,000 a year to take these shots for Alzheimer's, and they want you to start when you're young so that you don't get it. And it's a very limited amount of response to this in the first place. I think it was only 38% responded to it. But boy, that's a good, and you know who's going to pay for that? 80% of that is paid for by the taxpayer. And
is the Alzheimer's person autistic basically at that point? I mean,
well, let me explain this to you. And I know we're going to be running short. This time is going to run out any second now. But Alzheimer's is a reduced amount of neural activity. Exactly what? Not 100% sure. Certain. Here it comes up. Time is running out. The meeting will end in 10 minutes. Okay, now, here's the deal. You have synapses, which is electrical conductivity, and that is created by certain chemistry, chemicals breaking down, spitting out electrical energy. Then you have insulation. It's just like a wire. If the wire has to be good inside and be conductive, that's the chemical part. Then you got the insulation to wrap it around so that it doesn't get affected by bumping into something else and picking up false signals. That's the insulation. That's called myelin sheathing. And it wraps it around just like a jelly roll. And if it doesn't bend and twist and flip and flop and do all those things and stay integrally, it has to stay perfect. It can't break or bend, or it's got to be perfect. And there is hundreds of millions of wires in your body. And every one of them, well, not every one of them, there's different types of conductive wiring, and there's different, they all do different jobs, and they do have different chemistry, and they do have different protective coatings because they're in different chemical areas: acids, salts, blood, lymph, tendon, muscle. They're everywhere. And there's a huge vagus nerve that runs down your back that controls all of them. They come in there as one big bus, one big trunk, and up to your brain. And man, I'm telling you, inside the brain is just phenomenal. And I can show you actual brains that are petrified, and you can see all of the nerve fibers inside them. Stunning. All right, listen, I'm going to close this up right now. I'm just going to turn my video off because it's going to go off. But this is Roger Dunnigan. No, stay there for 1 second. I'm just going to stop it in a second. But this is Roger Dunnigan. I'll probably be having some talks with him, hopefully, in the future. He's a nice, quiet guy. He lets me talk. So, but anyway, I just did a video talking about Roger, and if somebody wants to do a documentary on me, on this research that we're doing, maybe you could talk to Roger. I don't want to get involved in it. Maybe you do. I don't know, Roger. We'll talk about that later. You have any interest in that?
No, yeah, I'm good. No, I'm on that topic. Always have been.
All right, well, good. We're going to talk about it later. Time is up. I'm going to close up. All right, I love you all.